Hey everybody, how's it going? It's PBOGZ here once again, and doing another video here, and what's going to be happening for over the next few weeks, and maybe in between those I'll do some other longer videos. But as of right now, I'm just going to do a few hand histories, short videos, 2 to 3 hands, good hands to talk about, and just basically kind of do it as like a mini series type deal, where over the course of a few weeks you'll get a bunch of different type of hands, and obviously different aspects of poker, and could definitely use that to add to your toolbox, to your game, make you a better player, all that good stuff. So as of right now, I'm just gonna grab a few hands here and just gonna go over them slowly and just trying to cover every aspect of each hand. So this first hand right here is against a player that goes by the name of Donk Leader, and before I even played him, obviously I shark scoped him and I saw that he was a winning player. And one thing you always want to do, if you don't shark scope, I think that in some certain situations, shark scoping can be bad in the sense that it could be intimidating. For example, like if you're playing a guy and if you've never really seen him before, and then you shark scope him, and then all of a sudden he has this huge record and he's this winning player, and out of nowhere you're like, oh my god, this guy's good. You're like, what am I gonna do? Type deal. And that's kind of what I used to feel like back in the day when I first started playing. But what you need to realize is that even if you do shark scope somebody and they do have that kind of record, the more information you have on somebody, the better off you'll be. Because if you know somebody's that good, you could basically bank on the fact that they know the fundamentals of poker, and they'll do different things that you've learned over the years that you might be like, okay, well, I know what he's doing because he understands how to play the game. And also with that, you could also use a few of your moves, knowing that he'll understand certain situations better than some others. Like, for example, you're not going to want to barrel off on a calling station because he's going to end up calling you with some weak pair, and you're just going to be like, I can't believe you made that call. But if you do it against somebody who's a winning player, they'll be like, oh, he might have a hand, or like they're not as bad, and you could just do a little more tricks. That's one of the good things about playing regs. So back to what I was saying, this guy's a winning player. I mean, he's not like killing it by any means, but he was a winning player. And one thing I noticed weird about him was he just didn't raise pre-flop, which gave me the assumption that even though he's a winning player, he maybe just took his own type of style and is working with that by limping a ton, even though I don't agree with that, and I think that's a huge leak, because obviously you allow people to see really weak cards out of position for free, and you can get caught with aces to like 10-2 and stuff like that. So it's very tricky spots all the time, and you just don't need dead stress. So let's get into this hand. Now this hand is a quick hand, but it's an interesting spot, and it kind of goes with everything I just kind of said before. So right here, the blinds are still very early, got a little bit of a lead on him, and it's 10-20. So right here, he's been folding 56% out of position. So when I see that, there's no reason to make more than a min raise here, because he's folding so much that there's no point of risking more by making it 2.5 or 3x to a guy who's just folding out of position so much. So I decide to min raise like I usually do against a player who is not that loose out of position, and he flat calls. So right here the flop is ace-3-2, and right off the bat I'm thinking continuation bet, because I can rep the ace, and it's just not a board that's not gonna hit him that much. You'll get a lot of folds here for sure, definitely against tighter players. And the other thing you want to think about is this is also a board where you might get check raised a lot by a lot of players, definitely thinking players, because they know that this is a very easy board to get you off of, because if you don't have an ace in your hand, the 3 and the 2 isn't really in your range, and they know if they check raise you here and you don't have an ace, chances are you're probably gonna fold either on the flop, or if they continuation bet on the turn with a good sized bet. So with these two things in mind, I decided just to c-bet anyway, just because this guy hasn't been really aggressive on the flop out of position. And the other thing is that this guy's he's a winner, so right off the bat I think of him as a thinking player. So in the back of my mind I'm thinking while I'm c-betting that there's a good chance he might check raise me on this board. So right here I bet the standard half pot, which I think is just fine, and he ends up making it 120. So right here this is a situation where he raises to 120, and for me personally, if this guy was a fish, I would probably maybe flat here and reevaluate the turn just because I have some equity with the straight draw. But versus a thinking player here, I just think that a lot of the time he's going to be bluffing in this spot, because if he has a lot of like strong ace-x, he's obviously raising pre-flop. And if he has some, like, let's say a7, a6 stuff, I can still rep my ace-x. I can still very easily have a bigger ace-x in my hand. So even though he's making that raise, he still can't be 100% comfortable. So the next step with this hand in my mind was, okay, so I can either fold, flat, or click it back here. Now what clicking back here does is not only does it give me the control, the power, the aggression in position, which obviously I like, it not only folds out all of his bluffs here, but it polarizes his range in the sense that if I do click back here and he flat calls, well, there's only a certain amount of hands he could have. He could obviously have ace-x, he could obviously have some straight draws, he could have some pairs and some, you know, bigger hands like two pairs and sets and stuff like that. But by clicking back there, it polarizes his range to the point where I can basically dissect his hands to a handful of hands that he could possibly have. And when thinking about that, we get to also see the turn in position and know that if another good card comes out, let's say like a 10, we could definitely barrel off on that card, hoping to fold out a lot of his small pairs and his straight draws. And if he ends up calling on my turn bet, more likely than not, I'm probably just check folding the river, unless I obviously improve. So right here, I ended up clicking back here, and this is by no means a very, very big hand, but by clicking back here, I basically put him in a situation where he has to play his hand face up now. Like, either he's shoving all in, or re-raising me, or flat calling, which is polarizing his range, or he's just going to fold. And in this case, he folds, and we take down the pot. Now, I think the difference of playing this hand against a good player and a fish varies drastically. But in this situation, when you do shark scope somebody and he has a winning record, these are the kind of things, these are the advanced plays that you can think about when playing such a player. Because sometimes when you're playing really bad players, they just don't understand what you're doing because it's too sophisticated for them. They don't understand board texture, they don't understand anything. They're just playing their hands, and sometimes like, you know, fishy players will call down here with a 10-2 and just, you know, not have a worry in the world. So this is just a situation where, you know, you always want information on players, and don't be afraid if they're winning players, because it's just an advantage, another thing that you can use to your advantage.